All right. So, a few weeks ago, I did a 1 minute video on TikTok, kind of going over the med kit that I carry for Leah. And Leah's my service dog, for those who don't know. So, this is a canine specific one. And I had a few people ask for, I guess, more detail, kind of going over everything that's in this. A little bit of background on me and my medical training. I do have kind of the basic American Red Cross first aid and CPR. I did have an advanced first aid after college, but unfortunately I let that lapse. And then I went through what's called the TCCC, which is the tactical casualty tactical combat casualty care, and I did the civilian version. Um, and so essentially, a lot of the training that I have currently is around trauma. So dealing with gunshots, knife wounds, more severe injury, more so than just basic first aid. So getting into the first aid kit, first and foremost, I have a tourniquet that's always ready. So this is what's called a SWAT tee. It is just a stretchy band. And if you can see, there are the diamonds and then those little checkerboard. And so when you stretch it, you get an idea of how tight to put it. Now, that's how tight you should put it on a human. You don't actually need this much for a dog. A lot of studies have showed even like your hands, just putting pressure, you can stop the blood flow to an extremity. And so you can get away with a t-shirt. Ace bandage works really well and is a cheaper option. This was from another med kit, and I thought it was very applicable. Another one to avoid is what's called a rat's tourniquet. So I actually know the creator of this, and we don't really talk about it, but I am not a fan of these. So with these, similar premise of a tourniquet, you are cranking this down over and over and over, and then you can essentially layer it. But the problem is it's too narrow, and it can cause nerve damage and damage to the skin where you're putting it on. So these, if you have them, I mean, that's the thing, is use what you have available. If a t-shirt or ace bandage isn't cutting it and you have one of these, use it, right? But I am a firm believer that when it comes to the medical care for yourself or your canine, try to put together the best possible kit, right? So after that, we can open this up. I got this from a buddy of mine, Billy Haley, with Rescue Reflex. He's actually the instructor for the TCCC. But you could get, just a basic med kit bag from anywhere. This was just an empty bag that I put together. And then Billy actually got us a Christmas gift last year of a canine specific med kit from MyMedic. And so they're a great organization here in Utah. You can buy them online. Kind of starting off on this side, we have just a backup slip lead. And so this is actually held together with a little zip tie. But so a slip lead, basically it is just this D-ring. You feed it back on itself and you can make a loop just so, worst case scenario, for whatever reason, if I don't have Leah's leash or we come across another dog that doesn't have a leash, I have something to move them, right? Next are tweezers, and you never know when you'll need to pull stickers. I've had to pull cactus spines out of Leah's nose because she was too curious. So this is cling wrap. So this is a really small roll. You can get them bigger and probably 4 or 5 inch wide rolls. And interestingly enough, buying them for humans is super expensive. Buying them for animals is a lot cheaper. So if you go to IFA or Tractor Supply, any agricultural supply store in your area, you can typically find cling wrap for super cheap, like 2 for $3 type thing. And that just wraps around on itself and sticks to itself. So it's usually the outer wrapping. We have a little bit of stretch gauze. So this is a very small amount. This would probably do, let's see if it says how, 4.1 yards. So for a really deep puncture or anything that we're stuffing, this would probably only handle 1, right? But we can also put it over a cut or a laceration, and that'll do really well. This is where we can get into a lot of gauze. So this is compressed crinkle gauze. I want to see if it says how long it is. Essentially, this is a vacuum sealed pouch. And so there's a massive amount of gauze that's like pressed together. And that's a great way of adding more to your kit without taking up a ton of space. Lastly, this is an applicator, and it's quite simply a Q-tip. So the Q-tip goes with one of the most important parts of my med kit. And this is a brand called Wound Seal. So Wound Seal is a hemostatic, so it helps clot blood. So this one thing I really love about Wound Seal is it works on hemophiliacs, which not a lot of hemostatics do. So this is a little bit of powder. It's about, that's my thumb. It's not that much, but it takes the place, I want to say about 30 stitches. Don't quote me on that, but more than 10. And so very quickly it will seal off that blood or the laceration and prevent further bleeding and buy you time to get your dog to a vet or a human. I gave these to a few clients of mine that have hemophiliacs in their family. I carry this personally just in case we ever run into that scenario. So then we go into kind of the big stack of random stuff. So Benadryl is super handy to have. Benadryl is safe for dogs. What you want to look for, though, is the ingredient is diphenhydramine hydrochloride, and it's 25 milligrams. Some antihistamines have other additives. You want to get just Benadryl, just diphenhydramine. This is 2 tablets. I want to say check with your vet on the dosage. I don't want to get into how much to give. If you are in an emergency, I would say start with 1. If you're still having issues, go to 2. I'm not giving advice on that. That is out of my scope of practice. But if your dog is having an allergic reaction or gets stung by a bee, anything like that, this is a great option. This goes into just some of the gauze, just little non-adherent pads. These are helpful if you're covering something. So we've used these a lot when we get the dogs spayed or fixed, covering up the stitches, mainly on spays. Or anything around their limbs where we need to cover it. We don't want it to stick. This is a brand called PAWS, P-A-W-S, and it's an antimicrobial hand wipe. So meant for hands, you can use these on the surface if you're trying to disinfect something. Let's see. More antiseptic towels. I threw those in. These are just the gauze pads, more gauze pads. 9 times out of 10, you're going to run out of gauze pretty quickly. I would advise just picking up a handful of gauze and having some on hand because I always run out. Then we have just tribiotic ointment. I really like these single serve ones. because one aspect I never really thought about was on those big tubes of like Neosporin or bacitracin. Once you use it, open it up, and especially if you're pressing it onto the surface of something, bacteria can get in there. And even though it is an antibiotic, you can have bacteria growing in the tip, right? So these single serves remove any risk of bacteria growing inside. I bought, I think it was a box of like 500 from a local medical supply company for like $6. It's really cheap. These are super handy for, me, for Paige, for the dogs. They're really handy to have. And then just more Benadryl. So this is not an all-encompassing med kit. I'm actually in the process of rebuilding my med kit. Unfortunately, I had about $700 worth of med gear stolen out of my vehicle. This was probably 6 months ago or so. And that was a full trauma med kit. One piece that I really want to add into this, you can actually buy gauze like this that is coated in a similar powder to the wound seal. So you can buy hemostatic gauze. So that's typically quick clot. A lot of the newer ones don't have that heating agent, which that's fairly outdated. I'd be surprised if you run into that now. But you can get massive amounts of this Celox, and that one is, I'm just wrapping that on, and I don't have to worry about putting on the powder. I don't have to really worry about, you still want to consider the pressure, but instead of it just being gauze, you're going to have gauze that helps clot the blood. So as I mentioned earlier, the company that provided most of this stuff is MyMedic. They're a great company here in Utah. And they have, anything from very basic kits like this to canine specific, and you can go all the way up to full blown out trauma bags for your vehicle. You can basically do whatever you want there. But yeah, so this, as I said before, this is not a complete kit. There are definitely areas missing, but this is what we carry around just for the day-to-day with Leah. And outside of just the canine kit, I have a full trauma med kit in my vehicle. We have even larger one in Paige's vehicle. I carry one in my bag that mainly is human specific. So I have a cat tourniquet in there. Cat 5 is a really good, or not Cat 5, cat tourniquet. I want to say they're Gen 7s. Really, really handy to have. I highly suggest everybody learn how to use a tourniquet and carry them in some capacity, just because in a worst case scenario, if you have a dog or a loved one bleeding out, and for us, we spend a lot of time outdoors, kind of far from society, that can buy you time. I know there's a lot of controversy around, being prepared, that I'm being, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't even know. I can't think right now. Essentially, that I'm so focused on the bad things, right? But in reality, it's insurance. I have a fire extinguisher, not because I'm expecting a fire, but just in case there is one. And I think a med kit, especially for a service dog, is important because they are with us in a lot of areas that aren't normal for dogs. So even something as simple as an escalator can take off their claw, and it is amazing how much those bleed and take time to recover. So we've had that issue before. Walking on hot surfaces, they can tear up the bottom of their feet. It's mainly insurance for me that I'm not going to hurt her or be too far to help her, right? So yeah, if there's anything you think I missed, or aspects that you kind of consider when you're worried about your animals or your loved ones, please leave them in the comments. I don't do a lot on YouTube. This is actually a one-off video because someone asked for a longer explanation and I didn't want to do like a 15-20 part video on TikTok. Another good one, and I'm just kind of thinking about the med kits that I have in the vehicles. Another great option is you can get a burn gel or a burn gauze, and it's a gel or it's a gauze that's covered in a gel, and those are really, really handy for burns. Dogs, I haven't run into a lot with that. It probably would be handy to have just in case, but it's fantastic for humans. Even I burned my finger super bad on the dishwasher, on the element underneath it, and that one I could have really used having some burn gel on there and reduce the damage. But yeah, so check out MyMedic. If you have any questions regarding medical gear, I'd be happy to help out. A great resource to finding medical gear is North American Rescue. You can just Google that. They're a great organization. They have really good prices. MyMedic is another great option. And then I would look into local medical supply stores and see if you can't find bulk gauze, bulk tribiotic in these individual packets. But yeah, hope this was helpful. Went a little longer than I was expecting, but yeah, hope you have a good day.